highway today on my way to Kyle's, and I noticed a billboard for a community called Whisper Grove or Whisper Pines or
Whisper Valley.
Whisper Valley. Whatever. It's creepy.
Yeah.
I don't want to live in Whisper Valley. I want to live in Scream Town. Where we're loud
Well, now,
and
Emma,
proud.
that sounds much worse to me.
It's Damien Chazelle's musical update of Scream.
It's just improv. It's the world of improv. Oh,
Whisper Valley is a
loud.
thing that it is like, you guys didn't workshop that.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
who did this farewell with?
What
Or,
else was on the
test well
list? What else was on the list?
with? ASMR Town?
ASMRville. There's a development outside of Austin that all the streets are named after presidents.
Ugh.
And it's like, to get into it, you turn on to George H.W. Bush Way or whatever. I'm like, what kind of fucking ghoul?
Only
lives
disgraced.
here?
Only disgraced president.
He's not disgraced, though. So many people
Yeah.
see him as a hero.
Only presidents who are remarkably talented with the visual arts, which they just never had a time to show that side when they were in the White House for 8 years.
You're thinking of regular
You're thinking of W.
Oh, HW.
HW
Correct.
is the dad.
Has no demonstrable
He's still
skills.
alive?
No, he died.
Barbara died and then him. That's
And then
right.
he died.
Yeah.
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 Obviously, you were not following me on social media because I posted a lot about how people needed to stop fucking
Lionizing him.
canonizing
Yeah.
war criminals.
Yeah, he sucks.
But anyway,
He's canceled. George H.W. Bush, you're canceled.
That's
sis,
the
and
tea,
that's
sis.
tea. The tea's been spilled.
You guys want some real tea?
Yeah, I would
Yes.
love that tea.
George H.W. Bush's trash. I don't know any gossip. I don't talk to other human beings. I don't know anything that's happening in the world.
You didn't even know George H.W. Bush was dead.
This guy's he's a surprise to me. Oh, CIA Bush. All right.
yeah.
Oh, like I know him from back in the day.
Yeah, back from
when he used to be
Panama.
fun.
He would have the wildest coups. And he helped smuggle cocaine. Kind of. But totally. Look it up.
I almost did the absolute. Have you ever read that book that is about?
Probably not.
Okay.
Just in terms of sheer number of books.
Okay, so there's this thing that is like probably ethically you cannot do this. You'd be the one who would ultimately be the arbiter of whether or not this is an appropriate thing to do.
Yeah,
but
I've
somebody
had a semester of
basically
grad
somebody wrote like a sort of like armchair diagnostic like breakdown of W when I think probably like at the very beginning of that first term, like probably post 9/11, like ramp up to war. That's sort of when it came out. And it was all about like his childhood and like in the sort of like cold stoic nature of that family and like why he probably was the way he was, like why he was maybe like susceptible to these sorts of circumstances or like manipulation. And there's that whole like wild backstory where like there's a sibling that straight up died or was like had like some degree of severe cancer or something like that. It was like basically wasting away and then was just sort of taken out of the home. And he never knew when she or he or whatever the sibling like effectively died. It was sort of hidden from him as a child.
Wow, I did not know
I
about
didn't know
this.
that story.
Now I'm starting to feel crazy like I'm making it up, but I guarantee you I read a whole ass book about it because I was like, if we can see inside the mind of a monster, maybe we'll know how to take him down. But, you know, it's mostly just sort of like reading things to feel better about the state of the world. But can you do that, though? Just like sort of like project a diagnosis on somebody without actually like talking to them
Well,
based on the circumstances of their life?
according to tabloids, you have to make it really clear that you do not treat them.
Right, but you can still sound off.
And it's like, this is my opinion of what might be going on. I don't know how ethical it is,
Yeah.
but I definitely, you see doctors do it all the time in tabloids.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
like, this is not my patient.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
if there's one person we could look to for the ethical standards, it's Dr. Drew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So whatever he does, I'm good with that.
Guys, okay. We're gonna get to Elizabeth Holmes in a second. Okay, so
Yeah, thank God.
so Dr. Drew, I remember watching an
He's a piece
episode
of
of
shit.
Loveline. He's the worst,
He's the
right?
worst, yeah.
But like in Loveline, Adam Carolla era, when it was on MTV, it was like, this is kind of like,
I loved it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like sort of fun because it felt like, I don't know, like it didn't take itself too terribly seriously. And then like when people weren't calling in with traumas, basically, it was like kind of fun, right?
Yeah.
Well, we were also all teenagers.
We're teenagers,
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
So it was like
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and somehow Adam Carolla seemed cool,
Yeah.
and then Dr. Drew seemed like also like measured and
He
He was
responsible.
smart and like,
Reasonable. Yeah.
reasonable. He was
Yeah.
giving us the sex ed we wanted.
So there's this thing, and I don't know if this is a true thing or not. Like, this seems like, in retrospect, based about what we know about the two of them, that it seems kind of like a weird kind of apocryphal thing. But like, he basically like diagnosed a woman calling in with some sort of like early sexual trauma because her voice was quite high, and it was this weird thing of like, oh, your voice sort of fixed at that level when you experience your first trauma. I know. At the time, I was like, whoa, but now I'm kind of like, what?
That's wild.
But
Well, look at Michael Jackson.
what does that mean? If that were true, what does that mean for our girl Elizabeth Holmes?
I don't. What does she sound
She
like?
had a man's business suit on, and somebody held a gun to her head.
Sounds like this.
Her voice is. Kyle, can you get some audio that we can play on the podcast? Have you ever heard her talk
Yeah,
before,
I'll
Emma?
No.
plug some more. We'll plug in. We're going to drop
drop it.
Elizabeth Holmes right here.
This is what happens when you work to change things. And first they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world.
Which helps me a lot. Thanks. Now I get it.
She has she has such an uncanny like. I
So-
don't understand how she was able to fool people for like 10 years. She seems like such an obvious weird charlatan.
She's
Yeah.
the one who made up,
Theranos, the
Theranos.
blood
which
business.
is like.
It's like a blood testing
One
thing
drop
that
of blood,
doesn't work.
250 tests and diagnoses based on a single drop of blood, and it was all a sham.
Yeah.
Right.
And then she had all these like war hawks on her board and stuff like that. Who I'm like, that's like a weird. There's like a weird impropriety thing
Henry
happening there.
Kissinger, Mad Dog Mattis.
Yeah.
I need to make very clear. I am horny for Elizabeth Holmes and her weird, deep, fake voice.
She fakes her voice, and that's the best part about it is
Yeah.
that it's an affectation, and it's like, I'm glad you asked me about that. Like, it's so.
Well, let's save it because we'll watch the movie when it comes out. Whenever they
Jennifer
make a movie
Lawrence
about
is gonna
her.
be-
There is a
Supposed to be
documentary
J-Law.
by Alex Gibney coming out next month.
Tight.
There's also
Okay.
a podcast. That's really
Shondaland
good.
is doing a TV show for Netflix based on it.
Oh
Shonda Rhimes.
my God.
Supposedly, J-Law is in talks to be Elizabeth Holmes. I mean, it would be wild.
Okay.
It's a crazy ass
Incredible.
story.
It's a crazy
She has
story.
like a boyfriend who's 20 years older than her, who she met when she was 17 in China, who she just brings onto the board, like brings into the company to basically like intimidate everybody and stuff like that. And like nobody knows that they're secretly dating. He's like also bankrolling it. I mean, it is a wild fucking story. I wish this podcast was about it. So we could
She
talk.
used to wear Christmas sweaters like all the time, just year round. It was an anecdote from this podcast I'm listening to until one day she talked to somebody who worked for her that used to work for Apple, and they were talking about Steve Jobs
Yes.
and his turtleneck thing and how
Yeah.
he kind of stole that from Sony, having a uniform for their employees. And then like the next week, he said she showed up
She's
with her
full,
new
yeah.
look.
And people
What's
will
her
talk.
new look?
It's
Steve
black,
Jobs,
Steve
black
Jobs, black
turtleneck.
turtleneck, and then
all
like
black all time.
power pants, you
Yeah.
know, like dress pants.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is like, it's a wild ass story, and then it makes you wonder, like, oh, there's just probably like at least 100 dozen of these like weirdos in Silicon Valley who are just like spinning, you
Yeah.
know, bullshit into
Inventing
gold
shit.
thread
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff like that.
I'm sure.
I wish. Ooh, what about your life could you potentially lie about now and turn into turn yourself into a billionaire?
Oh, my
Like,
gosh.
guys, I want to be grifting more. Can we?
Well, we probably shouldn't announce our grift plans on
Nobody
podcast.
listens to
Nobody
this.
listens
to this.
Our secret
That's
safe with
true.
all 17 of you.
Steven, it's much more than that.
It is more than that, but I'm just saying, like, grifting is the only way forward. It's
Yeah.
let's have a little bit of
Okay.
fun.
The con
before
is
it all
on.
catches on
Let's
fire.
do it.
What can I get away with? I'll think about it.
Do you guys think there's three of us? Do you think we could be dirty, rotten scoundrels?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like just sort of seducing socialites.
Yeah.
Who's Michael Caine? Who's Steve Martin? And then who's an as of yet unnamed third
third-
character?
Glenn,
Dirty, rotten
the
scoundrel.
lady at the who
Oh, who's also a grifter?
Yeah.
I admittedly have not
Glenn
seen the entire
Haley.
movie.
I've
Okay.
never seen it.
Oh my gosh, it's a great movie.
I bet I would love it.
Don't know if it holds up.
They're remaking it.
Okay, is that what that movie was?
That's what that movie is with Anne
is?
Hathaway and Rebel Wilson.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
Dirty Rotten Scoundrels remake.
I
I would do a full Music Man.
Kyle, what a great choice.
I would
what
go-
an inspired choice. I'm like, oh God, I can't wait.
I would go to a small town
Yeah.
and I would try to sell them on, fuck it, literally,
a band.
literally a band, a town band.
What about an improv theater?
Oh, Music Man, but it's improv.
But it's improv. Guys, say this
gotta
idea,
get
say
your
this idea.
kids out of those billiard halls.
I'm talking about zip, 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 zip. Right here in River City. Zop, 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 zop.
You gotta know the territory.
Oh my
Guys,
gosh.
I fucking stan Music Man.
I love Music Man.
It's so
Let's
good.
get into this. Is now a Music Man podcast.
Okay, so my
no,
church,
I have seen Music Man.
it fucking
It's
owns.
great.
All of the music is amazing.
It's incredible.
Good night, my
Till There Was
someone.
You.
Good night, my love. I know that more because it was featured in Ally McBeal.
For a while, I had a textile business. It was about a year. I was out of work.
What?
And it was called Libertine Men and Scarlet Women, which is an excellent line from a song in Music Man where they're talking about sort of like people of ill repute. Libertine men and scarlet women.
Yeah.
It slaps, man.
I'm just curious about this textile business.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%.
Listen, guys,
Now I gotta know more.
I was just trying to like get into the world of sort of like fashion resourcing. I don't
So
know.
you were making
you were
fabrics?
the new
I was
Dove
making
Charney.
I was designing fabrics and having them made and then making soft textile goods out of them. Zipper pouches, things like that, selling them
Well,
online.
That's fun.
I have some back stock. I'll give you one.
Oh, yay. I got some podcast swag, finally.
Let's get it going. This is We Are Definitely Afraid of the Dark. It is the scary movie podcast for people who are scared of everything. My name is Stephen Smith. I'm scared of everything.
I'm Emma Holder, and I'm also more scared of more things.
My name's Professor Harold Hill, and
You are so amused by that. That's Kyle.
I got him.
We're the Madam Librarian, Maid Marian to your Professor Harold.
I'm
No,
Buddy
I want to be
Hackett.
the bratty child.
Who's like, something special. Okay,
yeah.
so we
The
did.
Ron Howard ass.
We did Music Man in church. I've only been in one musical ever. I was like, oh, I obviously want to play that part, even though I did not audition for it and never told anybody outside of the voice in my head that I wanted to do it. My friend Michael Kirk was cast as it, and all I was a fucking clarinet player in the school band who would be in like group scenes and stuff like that. I was like, this is bullshit. But it is one of the best musicals.
I love it. I love it.
We watched Let the Right One In,
Oh, Emma's taking it on herself this week.
which is a Swedish vampire movie.
But wait.
I would rather talk about than Music Man.
No,
What?
Emma, I have to
No, I'm just
ask.
kidding.
I got a topic you're going to love to talk about. What was a play or musical that you were in that you were slighted for the part that you wanted?
No, I was never in a musical. I
Play
refused.
or musical.
Well,
Like somewhere where you wanted the lead and you didn't get it.
I'm trying to think.
Because I got one if you want to think.
Okay, you go.
Wizard of Oz, 8th grade. I desperately wanted to be the Cowardly Lion. Did not get it. I was a flying monkey instead.
Slighted. Some
Yeah.
trash. Who got it instead?
A kid named Brandon who is now deceased.
Oh no!
It's not funny. It's very tragic. But look who came out on top.
Yeah, who's the coward now? Michael Kirk, I think, is still alive.
I guess when I was in Brighton Beach Memoirs when I was a sophomore, and it made sense that I got the part that I got. I was Lori, the younger annoying sister, and it made sense that I was cast in this role. But
Emma, please have some self-esteem.
no, because I was a lot shorter than the girl who was cast as the older sister, Nora, who was my friend Brianna, and she was a junior. And then the two mom roles were boring. So it was really just Nora because she had more lines that I would have rather had that part. But I kind of got over it because I had fun with my part.
Yeah, you got to make it your own. Speaking of making it your own, you got to make your own Renfield to go out and get that
Are
blood
you a
for
vampire? Are you an underage vampire whose background is quite frankly mystifying?
Indeterminate origin. Yeah.
Got to make your own Renfield. Like Emma said, with a sort of sense of urgency before she was waylaid by the irresistible nugget of telling a personal anecdote from her childhood. We watched Let the Right One In. It is a Swedish vampire movie. It is legitimately terrifying, and we subjected our dear, dear friend to the anxiety of this experience. Emma, what did you think?
What did I think, or do you want me to do my 1 minute review?
Oh.
1 minute recap.
Jump from that anecdote right to your recurring feature. I respect you reclaiming your time. Fair enough.
So, we're in Sweden in the early 80s, late 70s. A boy with blonde hair is lonely and bullied, and it's sad, and there's snow everywhere. Ugh. And he befriends this girl who's weird and only comes out at night. Turns out she's a vampire. And her weird dad, who's not her dad, is her Renfield, is going around murdering people to get her blood. But then he keeps fucking it up. He's terrible at it. So then she has to kill people, and people are starting to figure it out. And then he gets empowered by his friendship with her, and he hits one of his bullies with a ski pole of sorts, and breaks his ear, or bloodies it and ruins it. And then they end up deciding to go steady, the vampire and the 12-year-old. And then there's more murder, and basically it ends up that he goes off on a train with her in a box. He's her new keeper. And then weirdly, she may be a eunuch, but it's never really explored, and I'm not sure why they included it in the movie, but I'd be interested to hear thoughts.
Okay, time.
Minute 15.
Minute 15, you nailed that
bad.
one.
Not
I
bad.
left out a lot.
Yeah, but, you got a minute.
Yeah, you breezed through it.
Yeah.
I think we're talking vampires. This may be, I'm just going to put it out there and say, what I like about this is I don't really sort of acknowledge the kind of romantic subtext between these two. This is nice because it sort of does away with the lechy, seductive quality of vampires, and it's more kind of on the level or sort of brutal about what their carnal needs are.
Yeah.
And this, to me, I think makes this more interesting for me because I kind of don't give a fuck about the gothy sad boy vampire mystique.
Mm-hmm.
But this is gothy sad boy vampire shit, though. It's just that the vampire isn't the gothy sad boy.
It is the sad boy who wants revenge.
Boy.
Yeah, fair enough.
And
but he's not trying to.
The title of the movie comes from a Smith song. So for you to say I like this because it's not gothy sad boy.
I guess maybe it's it's not a man in a castle and people aren't wearing flowery collars.
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a sucker for a contemporary-ish update.
When you say you say it lacks romanticism, you literally mean the aesthetic qualities of romantic literature.
Or maybe just this sort of gender flip is enough or something like that, where it's he's not the vampire, she is, but he's sort of vulnerable. But I guess he's got vampire baggage bullshit, sort of.
Yeah, totally.
All right, whatever. Okay, thanks. Well, never mind. Disavow everything I just said.
No,
okay.
I don't mean to
I mean, you speak your piece. Okay, cool.
I mean, it does. It just sort of this movie, I think, does a good job of unpacking the appeal of vampires to goth boys and girls. That's one of the things that draws me to it. Because you asked in our first vampire episode, we're did you guys ever have a vampire phase? You were weird little
Moody
theater
goth.
kids.
Yeah.
And it's no, not really, because I was never really this kid here. But this
Were you guys
is a dark-ass
bullied?
kid.
Were you bullied?
Bully would be strong.
Yeah.
I mean, I was made fun of for being fat a lot, but I wasn't beat up. I was never beat up.
Yeah, me either.
No, I occasionally had girls be very passive aggressively mean to me, the way
Right.
that all girls were to each other.
Right.
But I was never really bullied.
I think to me, yeah, I mean, I was just, I think being funny as a kid is actually a good weapon against sort of pure scrutiny or ostracization because you can just sort of diffuse that a little bit or put people back on their feet. I do remember almost getting in a fight in high school, but it was like absolutely a misunderstanding where like, all right, let me set the stage.
I can't wait.
There's a woman named Jamie. Well, she's not a woman. She was a child because we were minors because it's high school. But she is, she's
a woman now. She's not
oh,
dead.
Boy, is she.
Oh, my God.
Ba, 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 boom.
Poking you on every platform. So she...
No.
Platform is the cutesy word I have for orifices. Anyway, so she was... So this is, again, this thing. Like, I feel like I kind of didn't have, like, a fixed social standing. When I watch John Hughes movies and it's like there's cliques and archetypes,
Right.
I'm like, that doesn't feel entirely relatable to me because I do feel like I had a huge school and everything was way more fluid than that. So you could be like multiple people at the same time. Anyway, so she was, she was like kind of like classically high school pretty and was in student council and stuff like that. But I was also very good friends with her. She was friends with a lot of people. So a mutual friend of ours, she needed like pictures taken of her, like kind of like pet guys stop. Headshotty type things. I don't know what it was. And her friend, who was also my friend, was like in photography club. Okay. So he took normal, not whatever, benign pictures of her, like, sitting in a fucking field of bluebonnets for her yearbook page or something like that.
Right.
Anyway, but she did have a like almost like comically archetypal like aggro boyfriend who was like into like football and things like that. And so this was like a threatening thing. And so he was like on the war. Yeah, American football. Stadium football in America. And he was like on the war path. And so like the two of them were like
of the pictures?
Yeah, like how dare she like spend time with literally anyone that isn't him?
Well, he was really stupid and thought you were stealing her soul.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, literally, it's like somehow like my friend.
Let's not judge other cultures, Kyle.
But I mean, it had an element of that where it was like somehow like he like captured her or almost like
there's
like
something
seduced her through the optics of his lens or something like that. And I'm like, well, is this all about phallic sort of like what is going on here?
That photographer was Robert Mapplethorpe.
But she did participate in a fully gay bondage sort of like photo shoot, and he had a very long telephoto lens. But so like they're fighting outside of C Building, and I just like walk by. Like I'm never aware of what is happening in people's like rich interior lives. I'm just like like just totally on the surface. So I just said like, "Hey Jamie, what's up?" as I walk into the building, and they're like screaming at each other. Like I don't read the cues apparently, full autism. And so then I'm walking into the building. And then I just feel like weightless all of a sudden. Like literally like my body has no center of gravity or anything like that. And it's because he's like, I mean, and also like, kudos to him. Because like I was a little slip of a thing, so I didn't weigh much, but I carried around a lot of books. So this guy lifts me fully off the ground and like turns me around in the air and kind of like brings me up against the wall. And he's like, "What'd you say to my..." I mean, this shit, like, up in my face.
Wow.
Like, "What'd you say to my girl?" Like, that sort of thing. And I only ever laugh when I'm nervous.
Oh, no.
And it does not diffuse the situation. So I'm just reels of laughter screaming out of my mouth, like, "Ha, ha, ha, ha!" Like, like, what is happening? And he was, like, basically going to beat me up. And then a teacher intervened who, like was one of the sponsors of NHS. And I was also the treasury of NHS. So she had my back, ride or die.
Wait, of what?
The National Honor Society.
Emma, you weren't in it?
We didn't have it at my
You guys
school.
didn't have it.
Interesting.
Maine's not part of this country?
No,
Weird.
It's a National Honor
I
Society.
know, but our school didn't like to have anything with valuing
achievement.
So, no, it might have been something you could have joined on your own, but it wasn't part of the school. Like we didn't have AP classes; we had advanced classes.
So just to be clear, you weren't in it though.
I mean, I got asked to buy a book.
But again,
from the National Honor Society.
You're like, we had Her Majesty's Secret Honor Society. You're Canadian, you fucking liar.
The Royal Mounted Honor Society.
I was in honor roll all the time.
Yeah. So was I. But I was also in National Honor
But I was going to add earlier, but I was politely listening, that I was student government president.
Oh, did that ever So did any bottom feeding ass nerds come around sniffing around you
and I
trying to make
sicked, my beefy football player boyfriend on them. Yeah.
But did you guys ever have something that came close to that? Have you ever had an interaction
Not
where you're
at
like,
all.
do you have nemesis or like people who you kind of like have mild revenge fantasies about, like, I don't want bad things to happen to them, but I don't want them to live a charmed life either?
Not in high school.
I mean, a little bit. Just, little weird interactions with people. You're just like, oh, this guy sucks. Just leave me alone. Like, they were nobody was ever really like that mean to me. I told the story about the guy reading the note on my backpack. Like, that's the worst thing that ever happened to me in high school, I think, that I can remember. Maybe I've repressed something else, but
there was a girl at film camp. I was at film acting camp. She was in filmmaking camp, and she decided she hated my roommate. So, like, she covered our doorknob with pomade. And I, like, was the one who opened the door. So it took me, like, 20 minutes to wash it off my hands. So then I did kind of, like, curse her out.
You're like, I did do a full Wiccan spell
thanks.
to bind her.
I didn't call her a bitch. I was just like, thanks a lot. And then I had a full-on panic attack, worried that she was going to, like, kill me. And then we just didn't really talk for the rest of the week.
My freshman year roommate in college, first semester, we were, like, literally the last two people in the incoming class to fill out the application for roommates, and we got stuck together. And it just culminated by the end of the semester where he was like, he did a full meltdown in the hallway, like the common hallway. I was like, where is he? I'm going to kick his ass. Me, because I'd sort of like sold him out to not have to live with him anymore. And he had to move to a different floor. And so did I. And so he was like out for blood. And then everybody full on like, oh, Captain, my Captain, Spartacus. Like, I was not there. I was spending the night with somewhere else. So anyway,
my dude.
it was not sexual. So I don't know why I implied that was stolen valor. That was stolen valor. But everybody was like, hey, if you're gonna kick his ass, you gotta go through me first. And I'm like,
Stephen Smith.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, damn it, why did I miss that? I would have loved to watch these good boys just defending my.
Where'd you go to school?
Southwestern University,
Dead
Georgetown,
Poets
Texas,
Society.
baby. Yeah. Oh yeah, I did go to a private college in the 60s.
No, I actually do have two friends who went to the school where they filmed that.
Is it like, ooh?
It's a boarding school in Delaware. Yeah. No, I don't. It has nothing to do with the movie. It's just where they filmed it.
Yeah.
Including Wyatt. You guys know Wyatt.
Yeah, I know Wyatt,
he went to that school.
Oh, that's cool.
Cool. He seems like the type.
Seems like the type.
Yeah.
The Dead Poets Society.
Yeah, I would cast him in that movie if I was casting that movie.
Every time you've ever shared a meal with him, he eats it with a silver spoon.
That's not what I mean, Wyatt. If you're listening,
spoon.
It's a compliment. You seem like you're erudite.
Yeah.
Let the Right One In is a vampire movie. And we did watch it.
Just full disclosure about these themes, right? Just as a kind of like point of potential caution for the future. We may not have that problem next week because we have a dyed-in-the-wall, absolute delightful lunatic on here, and we'll just sort of let him run free. But, like, aren't you a little talked out? I loved this movie. Do you really want to talk about vampires? Is anybody dying to talk about vampires? I don't want to talk about vampires,
but I do want to talk about how this movie was just so boring. I mean, it was good, but like...
You're fucking crazy.
It was so slow. I am crazy.
You're out of your gourd.
But...
You're off your nut.
Okay. Here is my favorite thing about this movie: the sweaters. There were so many good sweaters in this movie.
Lots of good sweaters.
Like, I straight up, when I was trying to avoid watching, I went on ThreadUp and started looking at sweaters.
I did observe that from the distance.
This movie is a very important blow for male shoulder pad representation in cinema. The men can finally wear the shoulder pads too.
And I think it's interesting. It's interesting to look at like how power and like just like violence, because like we aren't meant to see the vampire as the bad guy in this.
Absolutely not. No. I don't.
Like,
I think
it's
she's
weird.
Hugely
She
sympathetic.
violently murders lots of people, but like I think we're supposed to kind of like her.
Yeah,
well,
I mean,
this is sort of the thing. When I watch this movie, the vibe, the feel that I get from it, the reason I think I like it is the same sort of like why I like Pendulum and hanging out with everyone in Pendulum, because let's just get down there in the muck and let's roll around, y'all. We're all depressives, we're all nasty boys and girls, and we're all fucking vampires.
Yeah,
and you just kind of
we all probably scream a little bit, like to a kind of maybe scary degree in the car.
Yeah,
vampires, and I am a vampire.
Nope, can't sing anymore. Can't sing anymore. We got to pay for it
in this devil town.
Like Daniel Johnson understands the intricacies of like copyright and trademark law. Nice try. Come on, pal. Come on.
I'm sure he does, or his lawyers do.
Well, whoever covered it for that Friday Night Lights commercial.
Bright Eyes.
Bright Eyes, yeah.
Oh, was that Bright Eyes?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm sure he paid some money. Whatever, Daniel Johnson, come at me.
Knows.
Come at me.
Yeah, I would love to meet you. Come at me.
I think in terms of like who she's kind of targeting in the movie, like there's an interesting. So when these horror movies like have these revenge fantasies as their kind of like main theme, it makes me feel a little squidgy, because you both kind of like intellectually understand that it's wrong, but then there's this sort of zeal when it finally happens. So when she goes on her rampage and it's sort of like stylistically off screen and she kills these kids, horrible, but also kind of like a cathartic conclusion.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't know, maybe horror movies are bad for you because they make you feel things that you like feel uncomfortable feeling.
That's why they're good for you.
Once everything settles. Oh, okay, because it's a release.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't actually have to behead children because she did it for us.
But I never wanted to.
No. I'm not saying I want to.
I guess I just don't think, for me, I don't know if it actually is a release or if it's more of just a like, new things to worry about. But I get that it could be for some people.
Yeah.
Doesn't work for me that way.
I mean, I think that's interesting. It gets complicated though, because like the kid is legit. Well, Oscar is a bit of a
the main character.
Yeah, Oscar the boy with the book about sort of like knives and crimes.
Yeah,
looks like he might be potentially headed down a pretty dark path, even before he goes steady with a vampire.
Totally.
But like the head Connie, the head bully, is like, legitimately sociopathic. Like he kind of like is empowered by and kind of gets off on the sort of fear and pain that he inflicts on other kids. And so it is that weird little wrinkle though, where you're just kind of like righteous in your thing of like, that kid sucks. Like he doesn't deserve to get his head ripped off, but like somebody needs to intervene and like set that kid straight. And then you watch this sort of like abusive, sort of scary relationship he has with his older brother, and you're just like, well, now it's even more. Everything is just complicated to the point where it's still trying to push you in that like revenge fantasy direction. This sort of Haneke bullshit where it's like, you wanted this, you fucking perverts, but it's still difficult to sit with. Yeah. I like it nonetheless.
Yeah.
No, I felt that way about the pool scene, which is really insane. He gets held underwater by the bully's older brother, and then she clearly comes because we hear noises, and then all of a sudden you see a fucking head fall into the pool. It's so well shot. It's so interesting. And then you come out of the water and you see all the dead bodies. Oh, and you also see the arm of the bully just fall in the water.
Yeah.
And it's like so horrific, and like I did have a moment of like, why did she kill all of them? Like I had that moment first, but then there was also like the whoa, that's badass. Like it was at the same time, and like that feels weird for sure.
When bad stuff happens to bullies, you can kind of get there a little bit easier. I don't really understand how we're meant to feel about the kind of like, like down on their luck drunks who kind of like are almost exclusively targeted, with the exception of like that weird teenager in the beginning, like as the kind of like they receive the brunt of her like appetite, and that makes me feel weird because they're not bad people.
They're just living their lives.
Poor.
Yeah, exactly. So it's what does that mean, guys?
I'm taking it as this movie is from the point of view of children, and all the adults are bad and either like not present or dismissive of children and their feelings or whatever. So it's just kind of like
his mom, his dad, to a certain extent.
I don't think we're meant to think that she's good or doing right.
No,
we're just meant to
I mean, it's just going to show you what it's going to show you,
looking
and
for.
you feel whatever type of way you want to feel about it. I think is kind of the vibe I get from it. But it definitely is like from the point of view.
Yeah, there's a relatable character.
Let me ask y'all this. I'm hearing y'all talk, and I'm just like, y'all
gives
don't
a
fuck
shit?
with fantasy. Like, y'all don't ever just like live in your own heads, or you're just like, revenge is cool and good. Are y'all constantly 24/7? Like, no, I can't even like think or indulge in these like negative
probably.
thoughts.
I
or
mean, for
experiences.
violence, no, I really don't.
Never.
No.
You've never thought
I'm
about
about to
shooting
finish my
Donald
thought.
Trump in the head.
The very first time I've ever fantasized about hurting someone was this summer after the Kavanaugh trials. I had a very vivid fantasy of jumping on Susan Collins and ripping her little paper old lady flesh.
Hell yes.
And but I literally have never felt that before. And
Yeah.
I don't feel bad about it. Like,
No.
obviously I'm not going to do it, but like, that's the first time I've actually, and I would love for Donald Trump to die. I've never like thought about how I would kill him. I just hope someone does.
Yeah. But that's still a revenge fantasy.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like, I don't think about the actual suffering of the other person. That isn't fun for me. For me, it's more fun to think about like, oh, yay, it would be over.
Yeah, the
If that makes sense.
bad thing is resolved.
Yeah.
It's like sort of like karmic retribution. I mean, yeah, but I do think like, okay, so like in extreme fantasy contexts, like, yeah, I've been conditioned to think violence is cool, so I like it. And in this movie, I think it is maybe a little bit more difficult than if this was like Freddy doing this to like bad parents, because this is high fantasy, but like, but no, it's not. It's sort of this like realistic portrayal. So I'm like, it just feels bad when even with kids, because kids are kids. It's not just purely somebody who feels like they have it coming. But I do think. Yeah, I do have sort of like practical, everyday, newsworthy fantasies of violence.
I mean, I'm just asking because the argument, and neither of you making this argument, but it feels like one half step away from the argument of like violent video games cause like mass shootings, right?
No.
To be like, if
they absolutely do. They do. You guys met my mom, Tipper. She's cool.
Also,
she doesn't fuck.
rap music
Rap
does.
is
I mean, we
bad.
can all agree on that.
Wait, we all ate rap snacks before we watched this movie. We were preconditioned to like the violence.
But I do think I was really not allowed to watch. I mean, I watched some violent stuff as a kid, but like it was pretty limited, and then self-limited because I was scared of everything.
Yeah.
So I think like I didn't play video games growing up really because it scared me too much. Like everything
Wait,
made
the
me
video
so
games scared
anxious.
you?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Because it's just the anticipation of like getting hit.
dying.
Yeah. Okay, makes
You
sense.
die in them. They're
Yeah, yeah.
terrible. I don't.
They're anxious.
Yeah.
Video games
Yeah.
are anxiety.
Video games make me
inducing.
really anxious. So like I have this weird, like self-sheltered. Like I saw Pulp Fiction when I was 12, and that was kind of when the floodgates opened. But before that, I didn't really watch violent movies.
Yeah.
Because my mom, like, we weren't allowed to watch Terminator because it was too violent.
Yeah.
I mean-
Terminator 2 is my first. And I do remember being like, I'm like, it's cartoonish, but when that woman is on the phone and she's actually the T-1000 and she was
milk.
and then the guy is like fully impaled through the throat.
I
with
don't
the
know because
milk.
I've never seen it.
It's truly fucked
Yeah.
me up because I was just like, ugh, bullets and fire are way better than stabbing
Oh yeah,
weapons.
nobody wants to get stabbed.
The part of Temple of Doom when he rips the heart out,
Yeah.
that I somehow. I mean, we watched some stuff. Like, we watched that as a family, and I left the room, like, hysterical at that point. And that, like, I, like, still have to cover my chest when I think about that. Like, ugh, it's so gross.
Well, I mean, and then famously created
PG-13.
the PG-13 rating.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really fascinated by this point of view because I never once watching this movie thought like, oh no, like the violence. Like,
Well, I mean, it's the spectrum of who's here. Because
Yeah.
it's like entertainment for you, and it is like one of your favorite things.
Totally.
It is an absolute endurance test for Emma.
Yeah.
And then I'm like trying to get with varying degrees of effectiveness where you are.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know.
Well-
This doesn't upset me as much. I'm more like fucking cool by the end, but
Yeah.
then I'm also kind of like, It's sort of sad that those old people who are drunks died. I don't really feel that sympathetic for the children.
Yeah.
But no, I'm not saying it as like you fucking nerdlingers need to get on my level and like get cool with the violence. I'm just interested in like, why am I different? Like why can I watch this stuff and just like compartmentalize it and go like, it's fantasy, whatever. Like it's just showing me something.
I mean, part of it's
like,
got to be conditioning, right? You've watched a lot of it.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, but I also didn't like watch. I didn't watch like an R-rated movie until I was, like 12 or 13. I watched like Con Air. Was the first R-rated movie I watched. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But then also watched a lot of Looney Tunes, which has its own violence. You know what I mean?
There's also just like the sensitivity you naturally have to it. Like
True.
I'm very sensitive to this stuff.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make me like better or worse.
No,
it's just like I do get sad because I get like worried about the other people sometimes,
Yeah.
or I have to explain why they were idiots to be there in the first place.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Like a form of justification, do you think?
Yeah,
like the horror movie thing. Like they went in there. They should.
Yeah.
They should have seen it coming. Although, I mean, I know that we're just sort of poo-pooing that point of view. I feel bad for the lady because she's just walking through the courtyard. She gets pounced.
Yeah.
I feel less bad for the guy who B&Es into somebody's apartment trying to find out what's amiss.
Yeah.
Goes into
yeah.
a fully blacked out bathroom and then pulls back 2 layers of blankets on a bathtub.
to stab a child.
I mean, like, what do you think it was going to happen, homie?
Right?
He must have. He came to kill her.
Yeah, he
knew
came
that
to
she
kill
was.
her.
I mean, like the woman before she like self-immolated was like, I think she infected me with
Right,
something.
right.
He saw her drop out of a tree and then skitter away on all
Yeah.
fours. So yeah,
He was there to
absolutely.
kill the vampire.
But like, my dude. Like bring some of your homies with you. Bring the guy with
Bring
the
a
cats.
posse.
You know the
Yeah.
cats can fuck them up. Bring a cat.
I know.
Bring a team of
Cat
cats.
scene.
That was wild.
That was really something.
The cats all attack the lady who gets turned into a vampire for a minute. Which I've never heard that part of vampires.
I think there was some of it in Lost Boys. You get like animals just know. It's
Yeah.
that thing of like
Animals
animals
know.
are just
They have a good
keenly
sense.
aware.
Yeah.
I think my dog would know if somebody was a vampire.
Oh yeah,
I think Saul would not care. He would be like, "Can
not
I
a
sit in your lap?
protector.
Yeah.
Saul.
Can I sit in your lap?
Yeah. Saul's
You
got
can
that
drink my blood
BDE.
if
Yeah.
it means I'm close to you."
Now that sounds like me.
There's got to be a lot of blood in that dog dick.
Oh my gosh.
This dog's penis is huge.
It's all relative. He's a tiny dog.
It's absolutely not relative. It's
that's what I mean.
disproportionately huge for him.
But I think his dick would not look big.
Oh, are
on
all
a bigger
dog dicks the same size?
I don't know.
Standard issue size for dog dicks. Because let me just tell you, not the case for the fellas. Anyway, so
we
podcast
have very different dicks.
talking vampires with our friends.
That cat scene seemingly only exists to get that woman into the hospital,
Right.
Which
Yeah.
is wild to me.
They could have just taken her.
any other reason.
They could have taken her straight to the hospital.
I'm
she was
sick.
attacked outside.
Go to the hospital.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. She could have woken up in a hospital. But then she wouldn't have known that she was a man. She needed time to kind of come to the realization.
Figure
that she
it
was
Yeah,
out
a
but
that
you
man.
she
could also
wanted
just-
blood.
wake up in the hospital and do
Yeah.
that.
Sure.
I do want to see a sort of like extended director's cut of this though, because for some reason whatever. She runs out of the cat guy's apartment fully covered in cats. Like she's got maybe a dozen of them like biting at her viciously. And then like, but what happens? Does she stop, drop, and roll in the snow and they all get like, how does she get rid
Yeah,
of
how
them?
does she get the cats off?
She falls down the stairs.
Oh, that's right.
and
that's right.
they must just jump at
They're
that
like,
point.
okay, we got it. We did our
she
job.
smushed him. I guess. I don't know.
Cats are pretty spry. I bet they were all fine.
Yeah, I bet.
Sweden seems like a pretty scary place to live because it has
It just
that
looks
sort
so
of
oppressive
perpetual
and dark.
winter. It feels sort of like this sort of like brutalist communist sort of like feel to everything. All the architecture is just these like slabs of cinder blocks. The interiors are not so bad, but it just looks. It's just always so dark. Unless you're gonna bleed out a random jogger in the woods, in which case everything is suddenly really well lit. The whole plan seemed. Renfield one seems like he doesn't have it. His heart isn't in the game anymore.
Yeah,
he's fucking up.
terrible at it.
Yeah.
Would y'all enjoy being a Renfield?
No.
Would you volunteer to be a Renfield?
We're all narcissists. I would love to have a Renfield.
I would love. Yeah, I don't want to be someone's assistant.
Yeah.
No.
But what if you were given some sort of gift?
Like a
what?
power?
I don't know, like a power.
Oh,
The ability to not throw up when I eat bugs. I think
or you can sing like Tom Waits.
What if you get to live forever?
Yeah. Well, that's the promise.
Is that because is the hope that they'll
He'll
eventually
turn
turn
you.
you?
Yeah, he'll turn you
Okay.
eventually.
I
You just
don't want
keep
to
doing
live
this one thing.
forever. I don't want to. I mean, I want to live to be old. Like I do have a goal of living to 100. I'm just going to put that out there.
Right.
Yeah.
The Secret or whatever. Just because my grandmother lived to be 103, so I feel like I need to at least live to be 100.
She's really flexing on all of
I
you.
know. And it kills me that I won't know until I'm like super fucking old.
I did one of those tests. What insurance adjusters do? What is that table called that basically tells you based on a
I
huge
know what
number
you're
of
talking about.
It tells you when you're gonna die.
I mean, it's like essentially how. Yeah.
Well, unless you get hit by a truck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But, it's like all the sort of like family medical history, the smoking, the drug use, the sort of like risky sex, the diet, the whatever, exercise, all the stuff. And it tells you like when you might go. And I was over 100. I'm like, you can take it. I
Yeah,
do
no thanks.
not
I
want
bet they
it.
tell everyone that.
You tell everyone you want what?
No, I bet they tell everyone they're gonna live. Like
No,
they don't-
because my wife took it and she's not so lucky.
what?
Yeah, she was dipping out late 80s. And I was like
yeah.
100, and I was like 109 or something like that because theoretically,
Okay.
the predicted lifespan
Right.
will, not in this country. I don't know.
Yeah.
but
In
this
this
mean-
economy?
yeah. But anyway, I'm looking forward to those like fucking like horny Benny Hill bachelor years whenever I'm fully in my 90s and like Gucci Coo, like walking, like whatever that's gonna be.
I'm really excited to Golden Girls it. Like,
I mean, that's
I just want to
fun.
live with all my friends in a big house.
Yeah.
I just want to play slot machines with no judgment.
Yeah.
You know?
I want
Just
my
pump
grandma.
my disposable income right into there.
My grandma would fart so loud, and like I don't know if she didn't hear it or just didn't care.
Yeah.
But she would not acknowledge it. She would just like fart and then like keep walking, and it was great.
Do you think you could be an effective vampire, or would you just sort of like
No.
dry up and blow away from all the hunger? I have trouble just like making food for myself now.
Yeah.
So if I had to go out and go out and kill my food,
You're not preparing anything. Also,
Can I go to a blood bank?
I mean, yeah, I guess if you got a Renfield who works there.
Well, no, I could break in. I have vampire skills.
Oh yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I guess you could.
If I could break into a blood bank or True Blood existed, I'd be fine. So basically, no, I would not be a good vampire. Although I
Kyle,
guess
you
that's the
need
whole
to-
point.
Ooh, pitch. I got a pitch. Ocean's 11. But it's vampires.
Breaking up
And
to
they're
the
breaking
biggest
into
blood
the
bank.
like the one last score. And they don't, once they get all this blood, they're out of the game. They don't need to go get any more blood. They're done killing.
I love it. Yeah,
I like it.
I mean, I think that's a great idea.
Yes. TM. I'm putting this
Writers
podcast
Guild.
in on a CD-ROM, putting it in an envelope, mailing it to myself. Therefore, it is patented.
It's called Romero's Blevin. Blevin.
Blevin.
I think that would be cool. Who would everybody be? How many times in this podcast have we tried to figure out what versions of the Ocean's gang we are? Okay, but we are vampire, Danny Ocean's vampire crew. Who are we? And then what is your vampire twist on that character's archetype? I'm Scott Conn / the... No. Walk this back.
Casey Affleck?
Oh, you didn't want to say Casey Affleck?
No. I realized, I was like, wait, who's the other one? Never mind.
I mean, they're characters. You're not being Casey Affleck.
Yeah, I know, but I'm as sensitive as I am to violence. I'm sensitive of even being like associated with a character Casey Affleck plays. Okay, no. So I'm walking that back. Anybody have one that they want to go?
Yeah,
with?
I would be Brad Pitt's character, and I would always be eating little blood snacks like he is in the movie.
I was going to be Brad Pitt, but I guess I'll be Matt Damon.
Okay. Well,
You can be Danny.
oh.
I'm a leader. I'll be Danny.
I am the self-appointed. I'm the Danny Ocean that was promised.
I think I like that Don Cheadle character who likes to blow shit up.
And you're good at technology.
Basher.
Yeah. Basher. And then, of course, it ends, and they're like, and it's just this huge thing or whatever, and then I accidentally trip a switch, and then just blood blows everywhere in slow motion, and we're like all being drenched in it, and then we're at the end, we're like, Basher! Ocean's 12, greenlit. Romero's 12.
I changed my mind. I'm Elliot Gould.
Oh, fuck yes.
All right, cool. Sandra Bullock version, Ocean's 8. They're all mummies. Which one are you? What's your mummy power?
Stephen Problematic, you would make all the women mummies.
They can be daddies.
They can have it all.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. You're right. That's unkind to women. We're all creatures from the Black Lagoon. Okay, that is... Okay, what about a sort of Monster Squad style movie where they're not all vampires, it's just classic cinema monsters and they're trying to pull off a heist?
Yeah.
Just get a little bit of variation
all their
in
special
there.
skills.
A little bit of variation in there.
Invisible Man, are you kidding me?
It could be called Monster Mash.
Monster Stash. Wait, what is the thing that you'd rob? Not like
Vault.
But it's like a, it's got like a
Cash?
nickname, like a MacGuffin or a kind of that kind of like a whatever.
Oh,
You're
like
looking
the
for like a
name for a
Maltese
play?
Falcon
Yeah,
kind
exactly.
of thing.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll think on it.
Professional comedians and improvisers here.
Fucking full dead air. All right, well... Also, a guy is bled out in a forest. A woman is eaten alive by cats. She burns herself up. A bunch of kids are killed in a pool. A couple of old guys get eaten by the vampire.
Yep.
She is a eunuch. She presumably had a penis at one point in time. She said her name is Eli, and he said Ellie. Like he was confused, and then he changed the sort of pronunciation. There's a lot happening in this movie.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into it.
I know.
Let's review.
But I do wish the movie had explored that a little bit more, just because I was curious about it.
I think it is doing all of these little kind of like small, subtle signposts that we, based on who we are and our sort of like whatever our proclivity for interpretation is, can read into what because it is happening constantly in this movie where there are like all of these just sort of like moments of kind of like curious dialogue or just weird reveals.
Well,
and we never talked about the original Renfield was definitely a pedophile.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then that is not really explored in the context of this movie either.
Yeah.
Our little dude is definitely going to be a serial killer. So like maybe it's like a match made in heaven.
Well, and I wonder if maybe it's just the idea that like you see people as what you want to see them as.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then also I think with the eunuch thing, I think it's like just giving one more outsider status thing because that kid is like that kid never seems bothered by the idea that this may be a boy. Like she kind of it keeps hinting at it, like, would you still like me if I was a girl or if I was not a girl? Yeah. And he's like, yeah, probably. Like he's just always cool with it. So just you can tell there's like some element of queerness with him, and I think and then so he's just like another reason for him to feel like he doesn't belong in this place.
Sure.
I mean,
so when he
movies
gets out,
don't do this. I like this about this movie where it's like there's
over the
nothing.
head.
Exactly. Nothing's necessarily over, and it's open to like hugely to interpretation. I don't know what it says about me. I feel like more of a kinship or a sympathy for him when he's like when he's being bullied, and then I do not like who he is once he's sort of like overcome that. He has this sort of like confidence, and then this sort of casual cruelty that's weird, that is really off-putting. Like particularly when he makes her come into the apartment, and she like bleeds out. I'm like, it's unsettling.
Yeah. Oh, that was a creepy part.
He'll only get worse.
But all right. I will
it.
rate and review these iTunes. So I liked it. I did get bored sometimes, but I did like it. It was interesting. So I'll give it a thumbs up.
Yay!
And it didn't really scare me.
That's good.
great. I would be interested in a follow-up report next week.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's going to linger with me that much, but I'll give it 2 sled rides with my dad.
I'll go. Oh wait, I go last.
Is it your
movie?
movie?
You go. Yeah, I guess it's my week. You go.
So, I give 2 thumbs up. I love it. I think it might be the best of the genre. It might be the best vampire movie ever made, or it's like top 3 for sure, at least. Doesn't throw out any of that lore, that good lore. We talked about this. We were talking about other like Lost Boys. It keeps all that fun stuff and finds inventive new ways to do it.
Yeah.
I do love that there's all these angles of interpretation on it that you can read a lot into it. I am very interested in where this falls in the queer horror canon. I will be reading more about that later. Scariness rating, I'm gonna give it. See, I don't know, because there is a lot of really creepy stuff in it.
Yeah.
And nothing really scared me, so I'm gonna give it a 3. I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5.
Ooh, Kyle's more scared than me.
That's not what I said.
Yep.
This is the second or third time that's happened. I always love when it does. I love when she does his victory lap.
3 out of 5. Buckets full of jogger blood.
Awesome. I love it. I've read the book.
Oh boy.
On which it is based.
Sound the alarm.
I think, to me, I'm like sort of like art trash, so I like things that are like reinterpretations or like, wholly reconstructed imaginings of like sort of classic tropes or monsters or myths or whatever. So it's very much in my wheelhouse, very much my shit. I'm giving it 2 thumbs up as well. I agree with everything that you say about, I haven't seen a ton of vampire movies, but it definitely tops the list for me. I think that, like our success rate for these foreign horror movies, are very good. So, I mean, I don't know what that means. They're better at it than us.
Fuck America.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a ringing endorsement for me. I saw it a long time ago by myself. Absolutely loved it. Knew exactly that I wanted us to talk about it, even though we sort of talked around it. It's great. Everybody should see it. It is a 4 for me because it does. It's less about kind of like visceral fear and more about just sort of like. Like emotional anguish and just like sort of situational.
Yeah.
It's definitely a somber,
unsettling
bummer mood.
Plus, there's a lot of goopiness in it. There's a lot of like gross blood stuff. That's like not scary, but just makes me feel like. Ugh.
And I think that just like little, like particularly like evil in the form of a child or like sort of possession or something like that. Like her in the shadows luring that drunk guy under the bridge, like with her sort of vulnerability and then attacking a very, very scary situation.
Yeah.
Don't trust children. It's 4 for me, and it is for Swedish candies that make you sick. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Shall we do some plugs?
Stool Pigeon, Sunday nights, 8:30 p.m., Cold Town Theater.
Austin, Texas.
Free show. Bring your own beers. Pendulum, 3rd Thursday of every month, Cold Town Theater, 10 p.m. That's sketch comedy. Live, baby. Rate and review the show. Share it with your friends. I'm going to start hopefully sharing out some like little clips on Instagram and stuff soon.
Love it.
So share those out. Those will help people get more interested.
And we are at We Are Deaf Afraid on all networks.
We Are Deaf Afraid on everything. Check that out. We love you. God bless.
Bye.
Bye.